just talking with Kenyatta about this. I really believe that the ideology, the doctrine that is baked into our culture of white supremacy, that ideology of white supremacy, is so much at the core of so much of what's going on. And I still remember when I got fired. To the best of my knowledge, the one and only it's the 2 times in my life I've been fired. The other one is a whole nother long story. But I was a DJ I was doing an all-night progressive rock show for a radio station in Lansing, Michigan, and they had this rule. You probably heard me tell this story before. But what the hell? It's a quick one. They had this rule that you couldn't. We were doing what's called Drake format rock and roll. Bill Drake had come up with this formula of out of the top of the hour you play a top 10, and then you play a golden oldie, and then you play a top 20, and then you play and you had the records in the bins, and so you just take the top one out and put it in the back, and it was just almost all automatic. But this rule was you never play 2 women back to back, and you never play 2 African Americans back to back because it creates, quote, a sound. And you want people to know that this is a top 40 station, not an urban station or whatever, or not a women's station. And I didn't even know about this rule because I was doing the overnight show, right? I was not the DJ during the rock and roll time. I was doing album cuts all night. And I'm at work. It's midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And I played 2 women back to back. And I get this call from the station manager yelling at me about it. And one of them was a black woman yelling at me about it. And so I just, I played another black woman back to back with the previous one. And Bob was the station owner, and he was yelling and swearing at me. And I was like, what? This is an absurd rule, and I'm not going to follow it. And finally, he called me up and told me I was fired. And so I took Dick Gregory's album, The Light Side, The Dark Side, which is just absolutely brilliant. If you've never listened to this thing, particularly if you're white, if you've never listened to, this was one of Dick Gregory's seminal works. Four sides to the two record set, and so this must have been. This was in I was 17, 1968. And I just put it on the turntable and played it for the next couple hours. And the station manager sent the engineer in to fire me, and he decided. But he was a nice guy, and he said, "Nah, well, let's just smoke some pot and get high." And that was the end of that. But that was the end of my job at WVIC. But in any case, one of the points that Dick Gregory made in that album that was so awakening to me was how racism is so baked into our culture that we use phrases to describe negative things that we also use to describe people of color. Oh, that's a dark event in our dark past. Oh, hey, it's bright and white. It's good. We just, we have these associations. And then you get, white people getting this message at that very, very unconscious level that whiter, brighter is better than darker, right? And you get black people getting that message too, by the way. It's wounding black people, but it's doing something weird to the psychology of white people. And then you get the enablers. You get the Charles Murrays, the guy who wrote The Bell Curve or co-authored The Bell Curve, coming out and saying, yep, it's true, and we have statistics to prove it. Here, look at this. White people are smarter than black people. Well, it turns out that, Charles Murray's conclusions in The Bell Curve were BS. They were not scientifically defensible, although Charles Murray continues to be a major consultant to Republican politicians around the country. But there's this deep belief, and by deep, I don't mean like strongly held conviction. I mean like deep down inside to the point that you don't even realize that you're carrying it around. That I think probably 95% of white people in this country have. Which is that they are at least at the level of intellect and probably at other levels and morality superior to people of color. And a white cop who believes that, is going to take down a black teenager in a classroom. I mean, this is the subtle thing that's behind. I believe. Now, I could be wrong. I'm looking at this through white eyes, not through black eyes. My perspective is only my own. But I've known white racists in my life. I've known virulent white racists in fact, I can't say that I continue to know any, but yeah, and that's always the basis of it. It's not just, hey, our group is different from your group. It's our group is better than your group. And that's the whole rationale behind the KKK and the whole white supremacy movement and the white identity movement and all this kind of stuff. And while you've got at the top of the pyramid, these crazies that, the David Dukes of the world who get called out by the Southern Poverty Law Center, the reality is that the whole iceberg, the whole rest of the pyramid, whatever metaphor you want to use, that's largely invisible, the iceberg below the water, never gets talked about. And that's this whole idea of white supremacy and white.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-536-2370.
And white superiority. And it's just not true. We are all human beings. We have different amounts of pigment in our skin. That's it.